Life is a series of choices, strung together like pearls on a thread. And yet, when people look back at their lives, those choices are not all weighted equally. Some shine with pride and joy, while others weigh heavy with regret. When you speak to those at the twilight of their lives, their biggest regret often emerges with startling clarity. The regret of not becoming who they could have been. The regret of not becoming who they could have been. People regret not stepping into their potential, not aiming high enough, not taking the risks required to discover their best selves. They regret the moments when fear, comfort, or doubt held them back from living fully. They see clearly how they let life happen to them instead of taking charge of their own existence. And here's the painful truth. Most regrets aren't about the mistakes people make. Mistakes can be learned from. They're opportunities in disguise. No. The greatest regrets come from the things left undone, the dreams that remained unlived, the words that were left unsaid, the talents left unexpressed. They wish they had taken more risks, even if they failed. They wish they had spoken their truth, even if it cost them something in the short term. They wish they had pursued what mattered deeply to them instead of conforming to what others expected. But regret isn't just about missed opportunities, it's about the consequences of those misses. The person you didn't become leaves a vacuum. The relationships you didn't nurture wither and disappear. The skills you didn't master leave you feeling powerless. The dream you didn't pursue robs your life of meaning. Regret is also a function of self-deception. People tell themselves there will always be more time, tomorrow, next week, next year, and then suddenly the years have slipped through their fingers. They realize too late that life doesn't wait for you to be ready. It moves forward, with or without your consent. The most heartbreaking part? The potential they wasted wasn't inaccessible. It was always there, waiting to be claimed. But to claim it, they would have had to fight the very human temptation to stay comfortable, to avoid pain, and to settle for mediocrity. So do your best. Do the things that go hard for you, to learn new skills. Do the things that feel pain. And so they sit with their regret, hoping that those who are younger might hear their stories and avoid their mistakes. The greatest regret of old people is not becoming who they could have been. This sentiment runs deeper than it initially appears. It is not simply about missed opportunities or the occasional wrong turn in life. It is a profound and piercing realization that they lived below their potential, that they settled for less when they could have become more. It's a realization that is not easily dismissed because it speaks to the core of human existence, our need for purpose, growth, and self-actualization. When people reflect on their lives, they don't just count the achievements and milestones, they examine the gaps. They think about the person they dreamed of becoming when they were young, when their ambitions were limitless and the future felt like an open field. They think about the talents they left untapped, the paths they didn't explore, and the chances they didn't take. It's not just about careers or wealth, it's about the essence of who they are. It's about the courage they didn't muster to take control of their own narrative and live authentically. One of the hardest truths to face is that becoming who you could have been requires responsibility. It demands effort, risk, and sacrifice. It means facing your fears, stepping into uncertainty, and accepting the possibility of failure. For many, the fear of falling short is paralyzing. They stay in the familiar, clinging to comfort zones and avoiding the discomfort of growth. They choose safety over challenge, and in doing so, they betray the version of themselves that could have been extraordinary. There's also the societal factor, external pressures and expectations that subtly but powerfully shape the choices people make. From a young age, many are told to follow a path that is practical or safe. They are encouraged to meet societal standards rather than pursue their unique interests or passions. This pressure to conform often leads people to suppress their individuality, silencing the small, persistent voice that urges them to be more. Over time, they lose sight of their true potential, mistaking it for a childish fantasy rather than a worthwhile pursuit. And the quotes, "But the cost of ignoring that potential becomes painfully clear in old age. By the time they reflect on their lives, they realize that the safe path wasn't really safe at all. It robbed them of the joy and fulfillment that come from growth, exploration, and self-discovery. They see the shadow of the person they could have been, a person who might have had deeper relationships, contributed more meaningfully to the world, or simply lived with a greater sense of purpose. The tragedy is that the potential was always there. It wasn't something reserved for the exceptionally talented or privileged. It was a quiet but persistent possibility available to anyone willing to pursue it. Yet it remained dormant, buried beneath years of routine, hesitation, and distraction. People realized too late that becoming who they could have been wasn't about grand gestures or monumental achievements. It was about the daily decisions to strive a little harder, take a small risk, or listen to their inner voice instead of the noise around them. Time also plays a cruel role in this regret. When you're young, it feels like you have endless opportunities to grow into yourself. You tell yourself that there's plenty of time to start that project, learn that skill, or pursue that dream. But time is deceptive. It moves faster than you expect. And before you know it, the opportunities you took for granted are gone. Old age doesn't just bring regret. It brings the stark realization that time was your most valuable resource and you squandered it. At its core, the regret of not becoming who you could have been is a reminder of what it means to be human. We are not static beings, we are creatures of growth and transformation. To live fully is to honor that truth, to step into the discomfort of change, and to relentlessly pursue the best version of ourselves. But for many, this understanding comes too late, leaving them to grapple with the question that haunts their final years. What if I had tried? Regret often stems from the things left undone, rather than the mistakes made. This is a paradox that many come to understand only after they have lived most of their lives. Mistakes, for all their discomfort, carry within them lessons and opportunities for growth. They are experiences that shape us, refine our understanding of the world, and build resilience. But the things left undone, the choices avoided, and the opportunities ignored, they leave a void that cannot be easily filled. It is this absence that lingers in the minds of the elderly when they reflect on their lives. When we choose not to act, not to speak, or not to risk, we deny ourselves the chance to learn, grow, and transform. In the moment, inaction often feels like the safer choice. It spares us the immediate discomfort of failure, rejection, or judgment. But as time passes, the cost of that inaction becomes apparent. The job application not submitted, the relationship not pursued, the creative idea left on the shelf, these are the absences that whisper to us in quiet moments, asking, what if? This regret is not merely about the opportunities missed. It is about the life that could have unfolded if we had chosen differently. Each decision not to act closes off a potential path, a version of ourselves that we will never know. This sense of unrealized possibility can be deeply unsettling, as it forces us to confront the limitations of our choices and the consequences of our hesitation. 7. The voice of resignation. Few people dying alone. People often regret not expressing their feelings more than they regret saying the wrong thing. There is a particular pain in knowing you had the chance to tell someone how much they mattered to you and didn't. Whether it's love, gratitude, or even an apology, the words left unspoken carry a weight that grows heavier with time. Relationships, after all, are fragile. The missed chance to connect or repair a bond often leads to regret that feels permanent, especially when it's no longer possible to make amends. Similarly, the risks not taken leave a unique kind of void. Many avoid risk out of fear of failure, embarrassment, or loss, but in avoiding risk, they often miss the rewards that come with stepping outside of their comfort zone. These rewards are not just material or external, they are internal transformations. Taking a risk, even when it doesn't work out, builds courage, adaptability, and self-confidence. It is through risk that people grow into stronger, more capable versions of themselves. When risks are avoided, that growth is forfeited, leaving a sense of stagnation in its place. Time is another factor that amplifies the regret of inaction. In the moment, it can feel as though we have endless chances to do the things we hesitate to do. We tell ourselves there will be a better time, a time when we'll feel more prepared, more confident, or more capable. But time moves forward relentlessly, and opportunities that seemed abundant gradually disappear. What once felt like a small decision to delay or avoid can, in hindsight, feel like a monumental mistake. The pain of inaction is also tied to a deeper existential truth. As humans, we are meant to strive, to try, to create. Our potential is not a static thing. It must be exercised, explored, and expressed. Each moment of inaction, each opportunity we let slip away, is a moment in which we fail to honor that potential. It is a moment in which we deny ourselves the fullness of life. That is the truth. It is a time, unlike mistakes, which often come with lessons and stories to tell, inaction leaves us with nothing but questions. What could have been? Who might I have become? These are questions that haunt those who realize too late that the greatest risks in life are often the ones we don't take. The courage to act, even in the face of uncertainty, is what gives life its richness. Without it, we are left with a life half-lived, and that is perhaps the greatest regret of all. People regret not taking enough risks or aiming high enough, and this regret is one of the most profound realizations that surface in old age. It's not just about the missed opportunities or the achievements that could have been. It's about the failure to fully engage with life, to push boundaries, and to see what they were truly capable of achieving. This regret often stems from a life lived too cautiously, one that prioritized comfort and security over ambition and adventure. It is the recognition that fear, more than failure, held them back from their potential. Taking risk is an essential part of growth, both personally and professionally. Risks force us to confront uncertainty, to face challenges, and to stretch ourselves beyond what we thought was possible. They are uncomfortable, yes, but they are also where transformation happens. People who reflect on a life of minimal risk-taking often see a flat, uninspiring narrative, a life where the extraordinary was left unexplored because the comfort of the ordinary felt safer. The fear of failure is a major barrier to taking risks, and it often stems from societal expectations and internalized beliefs. From a young age, many are taught to avoid mistakes at all costs, as though failure is a sign of weakness or incompetence. But failure is not the opposite of success, it is a stepping stone to it. Without failure, there is no growth, no learning, and no progress. Those who regret not taking risks often come to realize far too late that their fear of failure cost them the chance to succeed in ways they never imagined. The irony is that the failure they avoided would have been temporary, but the regret of not trying lasts a lifetime. Another barrier to taking risks is the fear of judgment. Many people live their lives trying to meet the expectations of others, whether it's their family, peers, or society at large. They choose paths that seem acceptable or practical, even if those paths don't align with their passions or aspirations. They fear stepping out of line, making unconventional choices, or pursuing dreams that might be seen as unrealistic. But in doing so, they sacrifice their authenticity and suppress the parts of themselves that long for something more. The regret of not taking risks often comes with a painful awareness that they lived someone else's life instead of their own. Lunch Between Journalists focuses on the rivals and their prices they pay for success, and the degree to which they pay the price, developed so the final scene entitled Prices, Prices. Aiming high is another aspect of risk-taking that people frequently regret neglecting. It's not just about setting ambitious goals. It's about believing in your capacity to achieve them. Many people aim low out of fear of disappointment. They settle for less than they want because they convince themselves it's all they deserve or all they can realistically achieve. Over time, this mindset becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. When you fear failing, and we all do, it's deterring to avoid obstacles that might limit the opportunity. When they look back, they see not just the goals they didn't achieve, but also the opportunities they didn't pursue because they didn't dare to dream big enough. The most painful part of this regret is the realization that the risks they avoided were not as insurmountable as they seemed at the time. They were often small, manageable steps that, taken consistently, could have led to significant achievements. The decision not to act, not to take that leap of faith, often comes down to a lack of trust in one's own resilience. People forget that even if a risk doesn't pay off immediately, the experience gained from taking it is invaluable. It builds character, teaches important lessons, and prepares you for future opportunities. Time also plays a critical role in this regret. In youth, the future feels infinite, and the consequences of inaction seem minimal. But as the years pass, the opportunities to take meaningful risks diminish. The energy, health, and freedom that once made risks feel possible begin to wane. By the time people realize the importance of risk-taking, they often find that the window for certain opportunities has closed. Ultimately, the regret of not taking risks or aiming high enough is a reflection of a life lived too cautiously. It is a life where fear of failure, judgment, or discomfort outweighed the desire for growth, achievement, and fulfillment. It's the realization that the cost of playing it safe is far greater than the cost of taking a chance. The opportunities missed, the dreams left unfulfilled, and the potential left untapped create a profound sense of loss, one that cannot be undone. Fear, comfort, and self-doubt are common barriers to realizing one's potential, and these forces often operate in ways that are subtle yet deeply impactful. They shape decisions, hold people back from taking action, and keep them confined within the boundaries of what feels safe. These barriers are not external, they arise from within, and because of that, they are particularly difficult to overcome. When people look back on their lives and regret not becoming who they could have been, it is often because they allowed these internal obstacles to dictate the course of their existence. Fear is perhaps the most pervasive of these barriers. It takes many forms: fear of failure, fear of rejection, fear of the unknown, and even fear of success. At its core, fear is a protective mechanism designed to keep us safe from harm. But in modern life, it often becomes overactive, protecting us not just from real danger, but also from growth and opportunity. Fear convinces us to stay in our comfort zones, to avoid risks, and to settle for what feels familiar. It whispers worst-case scenarios into our minds, making us believe that the cost of trying and failing is too high. But the real cost of fear is the life it prevents us from living. It is the dreams left unfulfilled, the opportunities missed, and the person we never become because we were too afraid to try. Comfort, while seemingly harmless, is another powerful barrier to realizing one's potential. Human beings are wired to seek comfort. It's a natural and understandable impulse. But comfort, when indulged in excessively, becomes a trap. It creates a sense of complacency where the idea of striving for more feels unnecessary or even undesirable. The routines and habits that bring comfort can also bring stagnation, locking people into patterns that leave little room for growth or change. The pursuit of comfort can lead to a life that is predictable and safe, but ultimately unremarkable. And while comfort might bring short-term satisfaction, it often leads to long-term regret. People come to realize that the comfort they clung to was not worth the opportunities they sacrificed. Self-doubt, meanwhile, is the silent saboteur of ambition. It is the inner voice that questions our abilities, downplays our achievements, and convinces us that we are not good enough to pursue our goals. Self-doubt thrives on comparison, feeding off the belief that others are more talented, capable, or deserving. It creates a sense of paralysis where even small steps forward feel overwhelming. For many, self-doubt is not just a fleeting thought, but a constant companion, shaping their self-esteem and limiting their willingness to take risks. It convinces them to aim lower, to settle for less, and to abandon their dreams before they even begin. Together, fear, comfort, and self-doubt form a potent combination that keeps people from realizing their potential. They create a psychological environment where growth feels too risky, change feels too uncomfortable, and ambition feels too far out of reach. These barriers feed off one another, reinforcing the belief that it's better to stay where you are than to risk reaching for something greater. Over time, this mindset becomes deeply ingrained, and breaking free from it feels increasingly difficult. Yet, what people often fail to see in the moment is that these barriers are not insurmountable. They are not fixed realities, but mental constructs, shaped by perception and reinforced by habit. Fear, for example, diminishes when faced head-on. The things we fear often turn out to be far less daunting than we imagined, and even when they don't go as planned, the lessons learned are invaluable. Similarly, comfort zones can be expanded, and the initial discomfort of stepping out of them is often replaced by a sense of accomplishment and empowerment. As for self-doubt, it can be challenged through action. Confidence is not a prerequisite for achievement. It is a result of it. When people look back on their lives with regret, it is often because they allowed these barriers to dictate their choices. They realized too late that fear, comfort, and self-doubt were not as powerful as they seemed, that they could have been overcome with effort, persistence, and courage. They see that the risks they avoided and the dreams they abandoned were worth pursuing, even if success was not guaranteed. The tragedy of these barriers is not just that they prevent people from achieving their goals. It's that they prevent people from discovering who they truly are. It is only through facing fear, stepping out of comfort, and overcoming self-doubt that we come to understand our own strength, resilience, and capacity for growth. The regret of not realizing one's potential is ultimately a regret of not fully living, not embracing the challenges, uncertainties, and opportunities that make life meaningful and extraordinary. Missed opportunities lead to a loss of meaning, unfulfilled dreams, and withering relationships. This type of regret, which tends to emerge most strongly later in life, is not just about specific chances that were passed up. It's about the ripple effects of those missed moments. Each missed opportunity represents a road not taken, a choice avoided, or a moment left unclaimed. Over time, these small decisions accumulate, creating a larger narrative of what was left undone, and the weight of those missed moments often defines the regrets of old age. Opportunities are not just moments in time, they are the building blocks of a meaningful life. Each opportunity is a chance to connect, to grow, to contribute, or to explore. When opportunities are missed, it's not just the immediate experience that is lost, it's the cascading effects of that experience. A conversation left unstarted might have led to a lifelong friendship. A risk avoided might have resulted in an incredible career. A dream ignored might have brought a sense of fulfillment and purpose. These are not hypothetical losses. They are the very fabric of a life lived fully and authentically. My guest is educator and writer Jill Campbell. Jill, what if? Can educators speak? Missed opportunities have a way of eroding meaning over time. Meaning is not something that appears out of nowhere. It is created through action, intention, and engagement with the world. When people choose not to act on opportunities, they inadvertently deny themselves the chance to create meaning in their lives. For instance, someone who always wanted to volunteer for a cause they were passionate about but never did might feel a lingering sense of emptiness. The regret is not just about the volunteering itself, but about the deeper connection and purpose they could have experienced. Over time, the accumulation of these missed chances can lead to a sense of disconnection from one's own life, as though they drifted passively rather than actively participating in it. Unfulfilled dreams are perhaps the most obvious consequence of missed opportunities. Dreams are the manifestations of our desires, ambitions, and aspirations. They give us something to strive for, a reason to push through challenges, and a sense of direction. Yet, pursuing dreams often requires taking bold steps, making sacrifices, and embracing uncertainty. When opportunities to pursue those dreams are ignored or avoided, the dreams themselves begin to fade. What remains is a lingering sense of what could have been. This regret is not just about the dream itself, but about the potential person who could have emerged through the pursuit of that dream. The process of striving, failing, and growing is as valuable as the end result. And missing the opportunity to engage in that process leaves a deep void. Relationships are another area profoundly affected by missed opportunities. Human connections are built on moments of vulnerability, honesty, and shared experience. A relationship that isn't nurtured withers over time, and the opportunities to strengthen it become fewer and farther between. Missing the chance to express gratitude, to apologize, or to simply spend time with someone you care about can lead to regrets that linger for decades. It's not just the loss of the relationship itself that stings. It's the realization that the opportunity to deepen that bond was there, waiting to be seized, and it was left untouched. One of the most painful aspects of missed opportunities is their irreversibility. Time, once passed, cannot be reclaimed. This realization often hits with force later in life, when the opportunities that once seemed abundant are no longer available. The job you didn't apply for, the skill you didn't learn, the person you didn't reach out to. These moments are gone, and the window to act has closed. This permanence is what makes the regret of missed opportunities so heavy. Unlike mistakes, which can often be corrected or learned from, missed opportunities leave a void that cannot be filled. The loss of meaning, unfulfilled dreams, and withering relationships all contribute to a larger sense of unfulfilled potential. It is not just about the individual moments that were missed, but about the life that could have been built through those moments. Each opportunity represents a piece of a larger puzzle, and when too many pieces are left out, the picture of one's life feels incomplete. This is why the regret of missed opportunities cuts so deeply. It is not just about what was lost, but about what could have been created. Looking back, people often wish they had been braver, more proactive, or more willing to take risks. They realize that the things they feared, failure, rejection, discomfort, were temporary, but the opportunities they missed are permanent. The lesson is clear. Opportunities must be seized when they arise, because they are the stepping stones to a meaningful, fulfilling, and connected life. And while no one can avoid missing some opportunities, it is the consistent choice to engage with life, to take chances, and to embrace the unknown that ultimately defines a life without deep regret. Authenticity is one of the most significant measures of a life well lived, yet many people find themselves looking back with regret for not being true to themselves. This regret often stems from years, even decades, of conforming to societal expectations, suppressing personal desires, and shaping their lives around what others wanted or expected. The realization that they have lived according to someone else's script rather than their own can be deeply unsettling, leading to a profound sense of loss, not just of time, but of identity. The pressure to conform begins early in life. From childhood, people are taught to follow rules, meet expectations, and fit into predefined roles. This is necessary to some extent. Society requires a degree of order and predictability. However, this conditioning often extends beyond practicalities and encroaches on individuality. People learn to prioritize external validation over internal satisfaction. They choose careers that seem respectable, make choices that will please their families, or adopt personas that align with cultural norms. In the process, they suppress parts of themselves that don't fit into these molds, leaving their true selves buried under layers of accommodation and pretense. Living a life that prioritizes external validation over authenticity comes with a cost. It creates a sense of disconnection from oneself, a feeling of living as an actor on a stage rather than as the protagonist of one's own story. Over time, this disconnection can lead to a sense of emptiness or dissatisfaction, even if outwardly everything appears to be going well. The promotions, the accolades, the social approval, none of it feels fulfilling because it wasn't pursued for the right reasons. It's like climbing a ladder only to realize it's leaning against the wrong wall. The fear of judgment is one of the primary reasons people abandon their authenticity. They worry about being ridiculed, rejected, or misunderstood if they show their true selves. This fear often stems from a deep-seated belief that their authentic self is somehow inadequate or unworthy, So they hide behind masks, presenting a version of themselves that feels safer but is ultimately false. This creates a dissonance that becomes harder to ignore as the years go by. When people reflect on their lives and regret not being true to themselves, it's often because they realize how much energy they wasted on maintaining a facade rather than living authentically. Another factor that contributes to this regret is the tendency to prioritize short-term comfort over long-term fulfillment. Being true to oneself often requires courage. It means making choices that might be unpopular, difficult, or risky. It means standing up for one's values, even when it's inconvenient, and pursuing passions that might not guarantee success or approval. These choices can feel daunting in the moment, leading many to take the easier path of conformity. However, the ease of conformity is temporary, while the regret of abandoning authenticity lasts much longer. Relationships are also deeply affected by a lack of authenticity. Genuine connections are built on honesty and vulnerability, but these become impossible when people are not true to themselves. Instead of forming meaningful bonds, they create relationships based on their false selves, which often feel shallow or unfulfilling. Over time, the realization that these relationships were not built on authenticity can lead to regret, as people recognize that they missed the chance to be truly seen and understood. The regret of not being true to oneself also stems from the opportunities that authenticity provides. When people live authentically, they align their actions with their values and passions, which often leads to a greater sense of purpose and fulfillment. They take risks, pursue dreams, and build lives that reflect who they truly are. By suppressing their authenticity, they miss out on these experiences and the growth that comes with them. They look back and wonder what their lives could have been if they had had the courage to embrace who they were instead of trying to be what others wanted. Time magnifies this regret. In youth, it's easy to justify conformity as a way of fitting in or gaining stability, but as people age, they begin to see the cumulative impact of their choices. The years spent living for others start to feel like a lost opportunity to live for themselves. The mask that once felt protective becomes a prison, and the realization that they can never get that time back is profoundly painful. Ultimately, the regret of not being true to oneself is a regret of wasted potential, the potential to live fully, honestly, and authentically. It is a recognition that the most valuable gift we can give ourselves is the freedom to be who we are, unapologetically and without compromise. This freedom requires courage, but it is courage that pays dividends in the form of a life that feels rich, meaningful, and uniquely our own. And for those who fail to embrace this courage, the regret of authenticity unclaimed becomes one of the heaviest burdens to carry. In the final chapters of life, many people are haunted by the realization that they neglected their relationships, their family, friends, and the people who mattered most. This regret stems not only from the recognition of missed moments, but also from an understanding of how much relationships truly shape the quality of our lives. Life matters too much not to pursue perfection. And so she began looking for ways to find greater happiness for herself. As people age, the material successes and achievements they once pursued often fade into the background, while the connections they've formed or failed to form take center stage. The regret of neglecting relationships becomes one of the most profound because it is rooted in the deep human need for connection, love, and belonging. Neglecting relationships often starts with good intentions. People get caught up in the demands of daily life, careers, personal ambitions, responsibilities, and assume that their relationships will always be there, waiting for them. They think, I'll spend more time with them once I get through this busy period, or there will be time for that later. But life is unpredictable and time is finite. Loved ones grow older, children grow up, and opportunities to connect are not as endless as they might seem. What feels like a temporary postponement often becomes a permanent loss, and the realization of this comes too late. One of the key reasons relationships are neglected is the illusion that success can replace connection. Many people pour themselves into their work chasing promotions, accolades, and financial security, believing that these achievements will bring them happiness. They sacrifice time with their loved ones in the name of providing for them, thinking they are doing what's best for their family. However, the truth becomes painfully clear later in life. Success is hollow without meaningful relationships. The trophies and accomplishments that once seemed so important cannot replace the warmth of a shared moment or the comfort of being truly understood by someone who loves you. Technology, while a tool for connection, often exacerbates the neglect of relationships. In today's world, it is easy to mistake surface-level interactions for genuine connection. A text message, a like on social media, or a brief phone call can create the illusion of maintaining a relationship. But these interactions lack the depth and intimacy of real, face-to-face connections. Over time, relationships built on these shallow exchanges can weaken, leaving people feeling isolated even when they are technically in touch. The regret of realizing that these digital connections did not nurture the bond they once had is a common and painful experience. I speak from experience and inspiration. Another factor is the discomfort of vulnerability. Building and maintaining meaningful relationships requires effort, openness, and a willingness to engage in emotional labor. It means being present, listening deeply, and sometimes having difficult conversations. Many people avoid this level of engagement because it feels uncomfortable or time-consuming. They keep their interactions superficial, avoiding the messiness of deeper emotional connections. But as the years pass, they come to see that this avoidance robbed them of the richness and fulfillment that only deep, genuine relationships can bring. The conflicts are fascinating, the rivalries are high, but the connections between the women and the characters themselves are rich with wonder. The regret of neglecting relationships is amplified by the fact that relationships cannot always be mended. Time has a way of closing doors, whether through physical distance, emotional estrangement, or the passing of loved ones. The opportunities to reconnect, to apologize, or to simply share meaningful moments slip away, leaving a sense of unfinished business that cannot be resolved. This finality makes the regret even harder to bear, as it becomes clear that some things can never be undone. This experiment into gratitude enables hopes of progressing forward. We're confronted with a sharp departure, and it becomes clear that some things can never be undone. Relationships also serve as mirrors that reflect our true selves. Through our interactions with others, we learn about our own strengths, weaknesses, and capacity for love and empathy. When relationships are neglected, this process of self-discovery is also stunted. People who prioritize external achievements over personal connections often miss the opportunity to grow emotionally and spiritually through their relationships. They realize too late that the people around them could have helped them become better versions of themselves if only they had invested the time and effort. What makes this regret particularly poignant is the understanding that relationships are not just about what we receive, but also about what we give. Neglecting relationships means not only missing out on the love and support of others, but also failing to provide those things in return. The realization that you could have been a better partner, parent, friend, or sibling, someone who enriched the lives of those around you, can be a heavy burden to carry. It's not just about what you lost, but about what you failed to contribute to the lives of the people you cared about. In the end, the regret of neglecting relationships is a reminder of what truly matters. It highlights the importance of presence, attention, and prioritizing the people who make life meaningful. While material possessions and professional achievements may offer temporary satisfaction, it is the moments shared with loved ones, the laughter, the conversations, the shared struggles that leave a lasting imprint. To neglect these relationships is to miss out on the very essence of what it means to live a full and connected life. And that realization is one of the most painful truths a person can face. As people grow older and look back on their lives, one of the most haunting regrets they express is the realization that they lived without enough courage. Courage is not just about taking risks or facing danger. It is the ability to live authentically and intentionally, despite fear, uncertainty, and the possibility of failure. Without courage, people often fall into patterns of avoidance, settling for a life that feels safe but unfulfilled. The regret of living without courage is profound because it represents opportunities unseized, dreams unpursued, and a life that was not fully embraced. Living courageously requires stepping out of one's comfort zone, but comfort zones are alluring. They provide a sense of safety and predictability, which, while reassuring, can also become a prison. People stay in jobs they dislike, relationships that drain them, or routines that limit them, simply because it feels easier than facing the discomfort of change. They justify these choices by telling themselves that it's practical, responsible, or the right thing to do. But over time, they begin to sense the cost of these choices, a creeping dissatisfaction, a feeling of being stuck, and a growing awareness that they are not living the life they truly want. When they look back, they realize that their comfort zone was not a place of security, but a place of stagnation, and leaving it would have required courage they didn't muster. Fear is the greatest obstacle to courage, and it takes many forms: fear of failure, fear of rejection, fear of judgment, and even fear of success. These fears are deeply ingrained and often magnified by societal expectations. People are conditioned to avoid failure at all costs, to prioritize appearances over authenticity, and to conform rather than stand out. These fears create invisible barriers that hold people back from pursuing their dreams or expressing their true selves. They whisper doubts into their minds, convincing them that the risks are too great and that it's better to play it safe. But what people don't realize in the moment is that the risks of playing it safe, of not acting, not trying, not daring, are far greater. The regret of living without courage comes from the painful awareness of this truth. Courage also requires embracing vulnerability, which many people avoid at all costs. Vulnerability means exposing oneself to the possibility of failure, criticism, or emotional pain, but it is also the gateway to growth, connection, and fulfillment. Without vulnerability, relationships remain superficial, creativity is stifled, and opportunities for personal transformation are missed. People who live without courage often avoid vulnerability because it feels risky, but in doing so, they also avoid the experiences that make life rich and meaningful. Later in life, they look back and realize that their fear of vulnerability kept them from truly living, and that realization is a source of deep regret. Another aspect of living without courage is the failure to stand up for one's values and beliefs. It is far easier to go along with the crowd, to remain silent in the face of injustice, or to compromise on what matters most for the sake of avoiding conflict. But this ease comes at a cost. Each time a person chooses comfort over conviction, they chip away at their sense of integrity and self-respect. Over time, they begin to feel a disconnect between who they are and who they aspire to be. The regret of not living with courage often includes the recognition that they allowed fear or complacency to dictate their actions rather than standing firm in their beliefs. Courage is also essential for pursuing dreams and ambitions, yet so many people abandon their dreams because they seem too risky or unattainable. They tell themselves that their dreams are impractical, that they're not talented enough, or that it's too late to start. But these are often excuses born of fear rather than legitimate limitations. Dreams require courage because they demand effort, persistence, and the willingness to face uncertainty. When people give up on their dreams, they also give up on the person they might have become through the pursuit of those dreams. The regret of living without courage often includes the painful question of what if? What if they had tried? What if they had taken that leap? What if they had dared to believe in themselves? What if they had rather be complacent and glad to sleep under a roof of rest, glad to lie under a roof of rest? Living courageously also means embracing change, which is one of life's most challenging yet inevitable realities. Many people resist change because it feels threatening, but in doing so, they miss out on opportunities for growth and renewal. Whether it's leaving a toxic relationship, starting a new career, or moving to a new place, change requires the courage to let go of the familiar and step into the unknown. Those who resist change often look back with regret, realizing that their fear of the unfamiliar kept them from discovering new possibilities and living a more fulfilling life. So what's the solution? The regret of living without courage is ultimately a regret of not fully engaging with life. It is a recognition that fear and avoidance kept them from experiencing the highs and lows, the triumphs and failures, and the rich complexity of a life well lived. Courage does not guarantee success, but it guarantees growth, learning, and the satisfaction of knowing that you tried. People who live courageously may face setbacks and challenges, but they rarely regret the risks they took because they know they were true to themselves and their aspirations. When people reflect on their lives, they often wish they had been braver, not because courage would have made life easier, but because it would have made life richer. The regret of living without courage is the realization that they allowed fear to dictate their choices, and in doing so, they missed the chance to fully embrace their potential, their relationships, and the unique opportunities that life had to offer. Courage, though difficult, is the key to a life that feels authentic, meaningful, and deeply fulfilling. In the end, the regrets of old age are not rooted in the mistakes we make, but in the opportunities we fail to seize, the authenticity we suppress, and the connections we neglect. They are the echoes of roads not taken, risks avoided, and lives lived in the shadow of fear, conformity, and distraction. These regrets remind us that life's greatest treasures, meaning, fulfillment, love, and growth, come from the choices we make to engage fully with the world and to honor our true selves. As we navigate this journey, the wisdom of those who have lived before us offers a powerful lesson. The time to act is now, to live courageously, to nurture our relationships, to chase our dreams, and to stand firmly in our authenticity is to ensure that when we look back, we can do so with pride rather than regret. Life is not meant to be perfect or easy. It is meant to be meaningful, and meaning is forged in the risks we take, the love we give, the truths we speak, and the opportunities we embrace. Let these reflections not be a lament for what was lost, but a call to action for what can still be gained. The power to live a life free of deep regret lies in the choices we make today. Choose to be bold, to be true, and to live fully, so that when your time comes, you can look back and say, I gave it everything I had. For now, prioritize your education and find relief through self-improvement as you begin your